Okay, so take a look at what's up here on the screen. At the top of the screen, what do you see? What's all this stuff? That's all my data, right? And then down here, what do you see?
A graph.
All right, so I've got a graph. I've taken some of this data and had the computer turn it into a graph for me. Now, I know you all know how to graph, right? If I gave you like some points, if I said plot this point, 2, 3, 5, 7, you could put those points and then connect them with a line, right? So we've all done that before. This is having the computer do it for us, right? Very nice, very neat. I don't know about you, but I don't have the best handwriting. I can't make my graphs look that pretty. I can try. I gotta use a ruler and take a lot of time and all that stuff, and I can make it look nice. But the computer can do a pretty good job of making it look a lot nicer than I can in way less time. So we're gonna look at how to make one of these graphs right now. There's a few ways to do this. I'm going to show you one way that pretty much always works. So the first graph that you have to make is one that looks like this. It's work versus time. When I say work versus time, that means that, well, generally, time is on the horizontal axis. Think back to our velocity time graphs that we did way back at the beginning of the semester, and position time graphs. The position and velocity were always the vertical part, and the time was always the horizontal part. And the same thing's going to be true here. So that means we need to set up our graphs to look that way. Where are the columns that have the work and time data in them? Which rows? You can look on yours or mine. It's probably the same. The rows. So they have letter names. E is the work, and F is the time. Okay, so we just got to remember that and then see where the data is. For me, my work data is E37 to E40. All right, so I'll just kind of write this down here so you can see it. It's E37 through E40. And then my time data is in F37 through F40. For you all, your stuff is probably like E2 through E, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something like that, and then F2 through something else like that. So that's where my data is. I don't have to write that down. I just wrote it down so you can see it, because this is something that I got to keep in my head. To make a graph, Google Sheets actually calls that a chart. So I'm going to go here to Insert, and I'm going to choose Chart. And again, if you want to do this along with me, you can. If you screw it up, it doesn't matter. If you make a mistake, what can you do? Delete it and make another one, or edit it, or something, right? So I'm going to click on Chart, and all this stuff pops up. First of all, I don't want a bar graph, so I'm going to change the column chart setting. I'm going to scroll down a bit, and I'm going to get a scatter plot. It's already stuck in some data for me, but I don't want to use that. I want to use the two things that I mentioned before. I want to use these. All right, E37 through E40 and F37 through F40. So I have to tell it what I want it to graph. So I have to tell it which cells to look at to plot the points. The order is important. Which of these goes in the X and which goes in the Y? Time goes in the X and work goes in the Y. Think about graphing. What points do you put first? Remember when you write like coordinates in little parentheses, right? Like 3, 5. What's the order there? Is it X, Y, or Y, X?
X, Y.
It's always X, Y. So whatever's going in the X dimension is what's going to have to go in the data range first. We said time's going in there, so that means I have to write the cell numbers or the cell codes for that first. So here's how you do that. I'll write F37. And then to tell it to look at F37 all the way to F40, I don't put a little hyphen, I put one of these. I don't know if you can see what that is. You see that right there? It's the colon, right? The two little dots. And then I put F40. And so what this tells the computer to do, it tells it to graph everything in between those two cells, including those cells. So it tells it to graph 37, 38, 39, and 40. So that's half of my data. I'm going to separate it from the other half by putting a comma. And then where's the rest of my data? Where's the Y part? That's the work. Which column is that in? E. So now I'm going to put E, and it's going to be the same thing, 37, oops, 37, and then I put the colon, and then E, 40. And I should hit enter, and then out comes my graph. So if I want to take a look at it, I can click on it and move it around. Sometimes when I click on this, it won't move around the first time. You may have to click on it twice to get that blue border to show up, and then I can move around and take a look at it to make sure things make sense. So to make sure things make sense, I'm looking for things like this. I'm looking to see, did the work show up on the vertical axis? Did it? What are the numbers for the work? Are they like 1, 2, 3, or are they 60, 80, 100, 120, something like that? The higher ones, right? So did I get that in the vertical column, or the vertical axis? Yes. I did, right? And then down here I've got numbers that look like the times, right? Most folks took a second or two to climb the 5 steps. So that's what I've got. Questions about that?
No, it's no.
Okay, so right now I've got points, and the points are in the right spot. How do I know what the numbers mean? Like, how can you tell what the units are, or what the y-axis is supposed to represent?
Look at the data.
You could look back at the data table and figure it out, but what could I do to make this graph a little more informative? Add labels, yeah. So I can go over here to customize, and there's a bunch of options, but I can add, right here it says chart and axis titles. So I can click here, and this takes a little bit of practice, but there's there are options within options. So right here you can choose the chart title. If you want to give it a title, you can. And you can type it in. This was work versus time. And so I can put that in. And oh, look where it put it. All the way on the left. Do you want it all the way on the left?
No.
Maybe you do, but most folks probably are going to want it where?
In the middle.
In the middle. Do you see anything where I can fix that? Probably somewhere in here. Yeah, title format. Good. See how it says the little alignment thing? Click the center one, and boom, there you go. Now it's in the middle. It'd be good to label the axes too, right? The vertical and the horizontal, to say what they are. So here's how we do that. I can go back up here, and instead of editing the chart title, now I can edit, say, the vertical axis. So that's work. So I'll put work. What are the units of work? Joules. So I should put a little J in parentheses so that I know what the units are. I can do the same thing for the horizontal axis. The units there, it's time. What are the units of time? So I'll put in parentheses S for seconds. And you see, as I'm doing this stuff, it's all popping up automatically in the graph. So that's how you can take your data, make it look a lot more professional. There's one other thing that the lab asked you to do with the data. It said to make a graph. What else did it say after that? It said to draw something. Yeah, best fit line. How many of you, just by raise of hands, have seen or done a best fit line? So not too many. Think of best fit as kind of like the middle line, right? The line that goes through the average of all the points, right? So if some of them are high and some of them are low, the line would go where?
In the middle.
In the middle. It's really that simple. Except you have to do some math to figure out where the middle is. It's actually pretty complex math. But you don't have to do that because, yay, computer. Thanks, computer. So to do the best fit line, I'll go back over to my little chart, and back in here there are some options. This one's not so intuitive, so you have to know where to go. So you may want to write this down. So you click on series, and you scroll down, and there's nothing that says best fit line, but it is something that says trend line. It's the same thing. Trend line is a synonym for best fit line. They mean the same thing. Trends is like what's going on. And so a trend line is just basically taking the average. So if you click on that, you see what pops up here. Watch again up here on my screen. When I click it, you see that line? So notice that line basically, if you put all 4 of these points together, this basically splits the difference of all of them Notice that over here on the right, this point is higher, and the graph also gets higher as it goes to the right. These points are a little bit lower on the left, so the graph gets a little lower on the left. But this basically splits the middle of all 4 of those points. So that gets you an idea of how work relates to time. This says that as time goes up, what's happening to the work? It's going up. Is it going up by a lot? Not really. It's pretty flat. This graph is pretty flat. So that's what it's telling us. It's telling us the work's not changing a whole lot based on the time. So maybe time doesn't have anything to do with the amount of work that you're doing. And actually, if you think about it, here, watch me for a second. When I stand up, if I stand up like this, or if I stand up like this, am I doing different amounts of work? I'm doing different amounts of something else, though. Power, right? But not work. I'm the same person, whether I raise myself slowly or fast, which is why this graph is flat. Because time doesn't matter when it comes to work, and that's kind of what you're supposed to see with that. So you want to do the same things with the other 2 graphs that you're supposed to make. If you have a hard time setting them up, let me know. I'll help you out. The most common mistake, and I'll show this up here, the most common mistake is that you get the data range backwards. All right? So like if you wanted to get work in the vertical side and you got it on the horizontal, that just means you have to do what with the order of these things? Just flip them around. All right? And sometimes I've noticed with this, it won't let you flip these around once you've created one, and I've had to just delete the whole thing, delete the chart, and just make a brand new one. But yeah, that's it. So you should work on making your graphs. We've got about 14 minutes left in class, so use that time for yourselves to get whatever you can done.